Bryn's back. Let's fill her in.
We believe we found a way to activate the Loom Gate in our camp and in Glintwood Hollow.
With the Loom Gates active, we could expand our search of the Enclave. Who knows what we might find?
The potential for discovery is endless.
Agreed. So, how do we repair a Loom Gate?
What made the Enclave remarkable was not merely their constructs, but their ability to power them. It has long been rumored that beneath our very feet exists an extensive magical network known as the Tapestry. The pipe you found in Glintwood Hollow is proof of its existence. It must be a conduit that directs raw magic to the Loom Gates as a source of power.
And the tangle that formed around it was a leak.
Precisely. Our theory is that patching the rupture will restore power to the gate.
Thankfully, Seven Lane have a plan for that.
We don't know a lot about Arcs, but I dug up some old stories from logs that we inherited from a weaver band that broke apart. In notes dated before the Surge, this band managed to get one of the enchanters who worked on the Arcs riotously drunk and talking.
Apparently, the Arcs have a thin carapace between their skin and their armor plates that's nigh immune to magic, and can be separated in segments. A magically resistant material like that would be perfect to seal a rupture in the Tapestry.
So I need to cleave this carapace off the Arc. There's no way my sword is strong enough.
Come see me and we can make some improvements to Sola's forge. Which, in turn, means...
I could hone your sword so we can cleave the carapace, no problem.
We'll talk.
Great foresight in removing the debris from the Loom Gates platform. We've got a clear workspace once the patch is forged.
Happy to be one step ahead.
Everyone's got a part to play in this. Let's get to work.
Two wonders of enchanting, an Arc and Loom Gates. We can touch them, smell them if we want. And they don't work. Maddening.
Did you?
Did I what?
Smell the Loom Gate.
A little, but that's beside the point. But mossy, hints of sage, a subtle yet full-bodied undertone of dirt.
Amazing. Well, now we just need to get it working.
Oh yes, should our plan succeed.
And if not?
Then it is time for Plan B, which I have not yet thought up, but I'm sure we won't need. Tangles, I mean.
After what it was like outside the Enclave, the ones in here are child's play.
It is an enduring mystery as to why the Veil's shadow is flooded with them. I did not expect that they would be so common inside the Enclave.
Are they common anywhere?
No. They were theoretical until the Veil went up. And then, of course, they became... political.
What exactly are tangles?
To our best understanding, magic is more than just energy. As far as we know, raw magic is a physical substance, but normally invisible. Our mantles gather it from the air as we move, but tangles prove it can concentrate on its own.
You said they were theoretical. What did you mean?
Lane and I have been digging. The only research on tangles we could find were thought experiments until the Veil's appearance. As you might expect, that research was done here in the Enclave. Apparently, they did not publish everything they knew.
What did you mean by political?
The surge was specifically catastrophic towards enchanted equipment. Explosions, out-of-control activations, you name it. And tell me, logically, who were the most likely people to have enchanted items on or around them?
The rich and powerful?
Well done. So, in a single moment, you have what seem to be hundreds of assassinations.
And decades of war followed.
As I said, political.
Thanks, Dom. That helps me understand them better.
Ultimately, the most practical advice I can give is very simple. Don't stand in the murder cloud.
I couldn't help overhear Dar mentioning the surge's impact on the politics of our lands.
You really do pay attention to what happens around here, don't you?
A survival instinct. Growing up in Judea, you realise the walls have ears. If some of those ears aren't yours, you're at a disadvantage. That was actually the problem, you see?
The problem?
After the surge cascaded through the Maida, every kind of long-range magical communication broke down. So you have magical chaos and no way to confirm if your nation is under attack. You assume the worst and retaliate. Judea, my homeland, was hit hard. Our trade fleets had become rather dependent on magical navigation.
And they couldn't find their way home.
Or at least to a safe harbour. You could argue the loss of our fleets was worse than any individual war.
Because the trade network suddenly collapsed. My parents used to talk about shortages during those years. It got rough, they said.
Yes. And the worst wars are fought over resources when people are desperate. I very much hope we can find the true cause of all that suffering. And a way out to share it with the rest of the world after we do.
It's quite a thing, being rescued by the Scry.
Disorienting. But better than the alternative.
I'll only ever use it when I'm sure it's needed.
It's really nice, having the sensation of you and the others watching over me. You're like the guardian spirits from the stories every Carnhaven child knows. You protect, advise, and of course bicker.
Well, I don't know about spirits, but we'll be your guardians any day.
How come you never hear about scries being used by military? Or to bring nobles home after a night of debauchery?
Rarity and expertise. Scries are enclave enchantments, and when the veil closed, supplies ceased. On top of that, it takes someone with exceptional control and stamina when channeling magic to use one for any length of time.
Got it. That's why points become watchers. How exactly does it operate?
Similar to a loom gate, but much more focused. I maintain a constant flow of magic into the scry, and it connects to you.
Letting you see the area around me.
In an emergency, I can, I guess yank is the best term, on that connection.
Compared to my last band, I'm glad we actually use the scry.
Just don't take it as a license to be reckless. Risky business flirting with death.
Can I ask how you knew to pack up the camp outside the Vale?
The tangles were shifting. They'd been static the entire time. And then, suddenly, just as an arc deflects a wave of Drake's breath, they start to move. That's no coincidence.
How do you know to run to me, then?
The tangles closed down the path the caravan took in. And it wasn't like I was going to abandon you.
I believe I was promised one epic tale on how you discovered the route into the Vale's shadow.
I suppose I did promise you. Rumors of a safe passage into the shadow had been swirling among Weaver circles for the last 5 years. They'd always piqued my interest, but I couldn't get a solid lead on it until 2 years ago. Weavers in a caravan bound for Don Brennig told me they no longer had a point. They'd lost an older Casil fellow who journeyed on the Strand Road before the Surge. He insisted on one last big expedition before his retirement, into the Vale's shadow. It killed him, but they got pretty close.
So you got the route from that caravan?
Not quite. The point that died was the one who led them in. He had the trade roads memorized. But it was confirmation that getting close to the Vale was possible. I spent the next few months chasing leads. Eventually, I was able to trade an Ash Peak Drake's Tooth for a map of the trade roads with a dubious Ashar woman in Tarza.
A drake's tooth?
Some people believe grinding the tooth of a drake into a powder and consuming it could have stimulating properties.
Ah.
Fools. Regardless, between the map and the other leads, I was able to plan the route that led us to the Vale's shadow a fortnight ago. The final missing piece was an apprentice point to take on the expedition with me.
Glad I could help. Thanks for sharing, Oria.
What's a good adventure if you can't regale someone with the tale later?
Did you see the size of that mine entrance? Amazing, isn't it?
You mean the one behind that huge deactivated arc?
That's the one. Given the size of the entrance, I can only imagine how huge the mine must have been. Their yields must have been incredible.
I've heard the rich resources are a big part of why Weavers first settled this area.
The land's hostile, but they knew it was worth the risk. Ores from the Enclave are high grade, very pure.
Hey, I know we need to fix up the forge, but before we do, I'd like to talk to you about something.
Sure. What's up?
I owe you an apology.
What for?
I've been a little cold since you've arrived, and I should have been more welcoming. I was just under a lot of stress with everything that happened.
You mean when we ran for our lives from a death cloud into a lost land?
Yeah, that. And losing supplies, and Aurea getting injured, and then having a point takeover who...
Lacks experience.
At the time, that's what it seemed like. But ever since we arrived, you've been more than proving yourself. You made finding food and water a top priority. That's when I realized our Weaver band is in good hands. I underestimated you when I shouldn't have, and frankly, I was a jerk about it.
It's okay, Cass.
No, it's not. I really am sorry. I hope we can have a better relationship moving forward.
Thanks. That means a lot. Let's just start fresh, okay?
I'd love that.
You know, when talking to Lane, they mentioned that you actually trained to become Point yourself. I was wondering if that had something to do with why we weren't getting along.
Oh, no. Being Point just wasn't for me. That's all.
The role of Point seemed really serious to you. Can I ask why that is?
Because it is serious. If you screw up, we all die.
That seems extreme.
Think of it this way. Let's say we're low on food in the desert. If you scout 3 leagues in the wrong direction, we're all 3 leagues further away from food we need to survive.
Right. I guess I see what you mean. Still sounds like an extenuating circumstance, though.
And being the first to enter the Enclave in almost half a century isn't an extenuating circumstance.
Point taken, I suppose. How are you feeling now that we're starting to get settled?
If this is settled, I'd hate to see us scrambling. I have a hard time letting my guard down when there are so many unknowns. We're still missing supplies and our campsite isn't half what it should be. Can't see myself relaxing and smelling the roses anytime soon.
So, I know Sola mentioned improvements to her forge meant being able to hone my sword. What does that entail exactly?
Unfortunately, the missing supplies I mentioned.
Is there a way I can help you restock?
Right now, we reserve the materials you bring back for your armors and weapons, because that's the priority. But if there's anything you can spare, I can repurpose them into supplies for our campsite.
Sounds simple enough.
Glad to hear it.